spiritual path. New Age is really kind of like those roach motels. You can check in, but you may very well not be checking out. The perspectives that I'd like to share in this section of the talk are shared so that hopefully as few others as possible may make the same mistakes as I have in the past. I can't tell you how many people I saw in the New Age who started out as occasional dabblers, delving into such seemingly harmless practices as consulting psychics, astrology, tea leaf readings, Ouija boards, playing the game Dungeons and Dragons, exploring New Age meditation practices, taking Hatha yoga classes, and many others. All these exact a price from the dabbler, whether the person is fully aware of this or not. Scriptural passages like that found in Deuteronomy 18, 9 through 12, list the forbidden occultic practices, like acquiring familiar spirits, witchcraft, divination, sorcery, interpreting omens, mediumship, and others. In verse 12 it concludes, "For whoever does these things is detestable to the Lord." And the bottom line is that all aspects of the New Age are based on these forbidden practices, either in obvious or subtle and disguised ways. And any time a person steps through one of these forbidden doorways, no matter how seemingly innocent or harmless, that person, by their own free will, is stepping onto Satan's turf. And even if the person is not fully aware of it, the enemy will exact a toll when his turf is tread upon. This is Satan's stock in trade, and he rarely misses an opportunity to try to disrupt a person's life with his flaming arrows and seeds of delusion. Satan dangles his various enticements to dabble, explore, and have some fun and excitement in his forbidden pastures, and takes delight in exacting his toll. It's my hope and prayer tonight that as few people as possible give the adversary a chance at working his wiles in their lives by tempting and potentially dangerous dabbling practices. Also, if you or someone you know has friends or family members who are dabbling, who are more deeply involved in the New Age, I have formulated a special cassette tape on how to help friends and family out of the New Age. And I hope this may prove helpful. It's not at all that unusual these days to know a friend or family member that is involved in one aspect of the New Age or another. And there are often very special considerations to be aware of when approaching such people. Also, I'd like to briefly address along these lines what I feel is a very important and sometimes overlooked subject. This subject is the widespread occurrence of obvious to subtle occultic influences in children's games and TV shows. This is an area that I had not previously been aware of, but the New Age has been making such strong inroads. It's shocking to see how deeply rooted and pervasive, undisguised and disguised occultic influences our youth are exposed to on a daily and weekly basis. There's an excellent book on this subject that I would highly recommend to all parents with young children by a Christian author. The name of the book is Turmoil in the Toy Box by Phil Phillips. In his book, he shows clearly and with research evidence that it's not so much the one-time exposure that is the real danger here. It's more the week after week, month after month exposure to the very pervasive occult ideas mixed in with toys and cartoons. All this subtly desensitizes our children to occult notions, and their young, highly impressionable minds can be significantly influenced on both conscious and unconscious levels. And here are just a few examples of popular children's TV shows that do have significant occultic themes. The very famous Masters of the Universe, Smurfs, Care Bears, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and multitudes of others. I would just encourage parents to look into this subject. Buy the book, Turmoil in the Toy Box by Phil Phillips, and monitor what your children are absorbing into their impressionable minds. Mr. Phillips concludes in his book on page 183, where he says, "It is time parents and anyone concerned about children take action to protect today's youth. This generation is being deceived by the master of deception. Unless we do something about it, children will grow up with more of a foundation in the occult than in the power of Jesus." Now, in the last section of this talk, I'd like to talk about the subject of the New Age as a rising end times force to contend with. For the most foreboding, potentially dangerous aspects of the New Age are seen in terms of the end times. I love the way Billy Graham sounds the alarm call of the end times when he writes in his book, Approaching Hoofbeats. "I hear the hoofbeats of the 4 horsemen approaching. They come as a warning and grow louder by the day. I hear their warnings and have no choice but to deliver them. End quote. The New Age has only begun to hit its stride as an historically unprecedented occult revival today, as any number of Christian books document. In this section of the talk, we see how it may very well fit into the end times picture. If some of you don't believe that these are the end times, then this section still has some important facts to point out. If you do believe that these are the prophesied latter days, then I offer the following concepts simply as a number of perspectives to consider toward understanding the underlying threat that the New Age may well be posing in the years ahead. The New Age does not work alone in Satan's strategies conspiring to bring the Antichrist to world power. Both secular humanism and New Age humanism work in league with one another in a partnership definitely not made in heaven. The Antichrist rises with secular humanism in one hand and New Age humanism in the other. Now let me ask you, who do you think is the most famous embodiment of New Age philosophy in all of history? Shirley MacLaine? John Denver? No, it's Adolf Hitler. It's stunning to realize that Hitler is one of the most famous New Agers of all time, and this is a very well-documented fact. There are any number of books that address this subject, and these include The Twisted Cross by Joseph Carr, another book called Hitler, the Occult Messiah, also The Spear of Destiny, among others. These books show that Hitler had a deep personal involvement in the occult and was involved in it from an early age. In fact, it was the driving force in his life. Let me give you an overview of many levels of these involvements. First, he was initiated into a very powerful occult tradition called the Tool Society. Dietrich Eckhart was his mentor and the head master of this occult society. This man wrote, quote, "Follow Hitler. He will dance, but it is I who have called the tune. We have given him the means of communication with them," that is, spirit guides. "Do not mourn for me. I shall have influenced history more than any other German." End quote. It's also a known fact that Hitler could be possessed by other forces at various times. A very close confidant, Hermann Rauschning, governor of Danzig, writes, "One cannot help thinking of him as a medium. Beyond any doubt, Hitler was possessed by forces outside of himself, of which the individual named Hitler was only a temporary vehicle." End quote. It's also a documented fact that the SS, nicknamed the Black Order, was an occult society in which all the individuals were required to make a blood oath to serve Satan. Hitler spent untold millions of dollars sending expeditions into such areas as northern India and Tibet, searching for occult artifacts which he felt were keys to aiding him in his quest for world domination. He also had a strong belief in reincarnation, as did most all his high-ranking officers. There are records indicating that many of them believed that they reincarnated throughout history together as a soul group. When Hitler rose to power, what happened to the German populace is a type of mass hypnosis, a mass delusion, a type of the plague of the spirit, which I would assert is a preview of the end times powerful delusion. Overall, Hitler's agenda was threefold. One, to create a one-world government in a new world era to be called the Third Reich. Secondly, there was to be the creation of a new and supposedly superior human race of God-men, all to be governed under one man, the ultimate Aryan super-God. And thirdly, in order to attain this goal, there was a need to cleanse the world's genetic stock from supposedly inferior species, thus the Holocaust. Now let's look at the overall New Age agenda in light of this, and we'll find some thought-provoking parallels. First of all, the New Age agenda seeks to institute a one-world government under a new Messiah, not, as they say, to be Jesus Christ, but some other Christ figure. Secondly, they seek to institute a one-world religion, which will be a kind of revamped New Age philosophy. Thirdly, they say mankind is ready to make a quantum leap of consciousness into a higher human race of enlightened beings. A superior race, they say, is waiting to be born to take control of the planet. And last but not least, New Agers claim that there is to be a time of cleansing and purification of the planet and humanity, to separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, to separate the new human race of God-men from those who cling to the old race of humanity. Now, does all this sound somewhat familiar to Hitler's agenda? I would assert so. In both, we have the recurring themes